Welcome to another episode in our CEO series here on Learn Grow Invest. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with the CEO of One Grade Studio, whose IPO prospectus is out right now. So be sure to go and watch that prospectus review video if you haven't done so already. We're going to be meeting with the CEO, Djuvane Browne. We're going to hear his story of entrepreneurship, how he got started on this journey. We're going to talk about what it takes to build a business, specifically a digital marketing business. And then we'll, of course, get into the IPO. I'm sure you have a lot of questions relating to the prospectus, what you've been reading. So it's going to be our usual great conversation. I want you to ask all the questions. Be sure to be, as engaged as possible in the chat. And let's just get right into this one. All right, let us pray. Thank you, Lord, for this day. Thank you for the ability to produce wealth. We pray, Lord, that as we seek to make better investment decisions for ourselves, for our families, to leave a legacy for them, Lord, I pray that you'll give us wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. In Jesus' name. Amen. All right, everyone, welcome again. If it's your first time here, be sure to subscribe. Please check out our prospectus review. As I mentioned, we've gone through a great deal of information as it relates to the prospectus. So what we want to do today is really take some time to get to know the CEO of One Grade Studio and then get a chance to ask the questions that we would have wanted to ask when going through the prospectus. So please join me in welcoming Djuvane Browne. Djuvane, how are you doing?
Hey Jermaine, how are you doing tonight? Thanks for having me.
I'm good. Thank you for accepting my invitation. I know this time can be just a whirlwind of press and interviews, and then you still have a business to run, right? So
yeah that's right.
it's an interesting time, but I'm sure you've kind of anticipated that to start.
Yeah, man. I mean, we just have to be thankful to be at this point. I mean, I know, like for us, it's been a journey to this point, and we're fully aware. We see this as it was like a major milestone. We see it as really the start of a new season more than the finish line. So for us, it's just recognizing that we have a lot ahead, a lot in front of us, and we're really excited about about this offer and what it means for this company, and for also those who will choose to participate and to invest in One Great Studio.
Yeah, I mean it's a great read, your story. We're actually going to be getting into that. So let's just start right there. So who is Djuvane Browne?
Yeah, I would say, all right, first is Brownie. So it's pronounced
Oh,
Brownie,
I'm
right?
sorry. I'm so
I
sorry.
know, I
Cool.
know, a lot of people pronounce it Brown, and I think it's the right way to pronounce it, but my family actually pronounce it Brownie, right?
Well,
So,
that's one thing we learned. There you go.
yeah, man, that's cool. Yeah, I would say first I'm a follower of Jesus, right? Like my faith is something that's big to me. And I've been, on this journey, of faith since I was 20, since I was about 22, right? I'm now 41, right? So it's almost a 20-year journey. That's the first thing. I think that my faith shapes a lot about, how I approach life, how I approach business, how I approach my work. I think that's really big to me. The second thing is that I'm a husband of one wife for 16 years, right? We celebrated our 16th anniversary in July. My wife Rachel, she's an awesome woman to have tolerated me for 16 years, but really and truly, like that's a big part of my life. My wife and my kids, we have 4 kids. Noah, Emma, Judah, and Bella. My kids are a big part of my life as well. And then I'm an entrepreneur. I'm somebody who has done a couple different things over the course of my life, but for most of my professional career, I've been building websites. And, in the more recent years, we diversified and added other service lines to our business as well.
Okay, so you started building websites. How far back would you say that process started for you?
Well, I built my first site in 1998, Germany, right?
Okay,
So, so
25 years ago.
yeah, and then I sold. I got my first paid gig in the year 2000. while I was away at school, and I was studying, and I was playing basketball at the time, and I was in Wisconsin, left Jamaica, I was there, and the basketball coach knew somebody who needed a website. He knew that I'd been building websites for a couple of years, and he connected us, and that's how I got my first client as a freshman in college, and started freelancing while I was in college essentially.
Oh, wow. So I have to ask because I'm a big basketball fan as well. Who is the team that you're supporting right now? And you better have the right response now. Which
I
team are
don't
you?
know if it's gonna be the right response for you, but I've grown to be a LeBron fan, and so Lakers is my team right now. And for all the time when they were up against the Warriors, I am a Warrior hater, and so
Oh my gosh!
but
Wow.
I've traveled with LeBron over the course of the years, like from got. And the interesting thing is that he's really no, I don't think anybody has done what he has done for this long of a time,
I agree.
and he's
I
and
agree.
he's changed his game over the years. And I know to say he's 2 years younger than me, and when I step on a basketball court today, I know what I'm not able to do anymore. When I was younger, right?
Fair
I
enough.
knew
Fair
what
enough.
I could have done. And right now I know what I can't do anymore. So to see somebody who is 2 years younger than me, I think, um, still at the he's not at the peak of his career, but he's still at a point where he's one of the best players in the league.
He's
League.
still playing
Yeah,
basketball,
like when
definitely.
I when I when I compete in a sport with like a 20-year-old sometimes right now, like it feels different. Like they have a certain amount of energy that I don't have sometimes. I mean sometimes I have advantage, but youth is a serious thing, and to see him stand up against the youth and that's something that's really special to me. I don't think we've ever seen somebody participate, like compete at that level, this far along in their career. So like it really, I think my respect for him has grown over the years. Who is your team, Jeremy?
Ah, so I'm a Golden State Warriors fan.
Ah, see it there.
I was actually a Golden State Warriors fan before they became who they are now.
Really, from when who was there?
From even
Like Spreewell?
before the trade, yes. So not quite there. So it was like the year before they got famous,
Okay,
right?
okay,
So
okay.
from when
When
Mark Jackson
Mark
was
Jackson was
coaching,
the
I
coach.
was a fan of
Okay.
Mark Jackson.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he built that team, He really built that team up. So yeah,
Yeah. All right, cool. So we can definitely talk basketball sometime then.
definitely,
So
definitely.
uh, you got this referral from a basketball coach at the time. You built your first website. When did you know that this was going to be a business that you wanted to do?
Well, I'm not sure. I think over the course of the years, so I was at school studying. I was doing a double major in psychology and computer science. At the time, we didn't have we didn't have like great multimedia or like digital marketing education or anything like that. So it was still at the forefront of everything that was coming. So I did psychology and computer science because for me I always wanted to do like UX and UI design. At the time that never even exists. You just call it web design or multimedia design. UI and UX are phrases that came way later, right? But I always wanted to design things that people use on their computers, right? And so while I was doing that, essentially, over the years at college, then I got a job in basically the sports department for the college, right?
Ah, okay.
And so they had a website for the sports department, and that needed to be maintained, right? And so the first year I worked in that job, I think must have been my sophomore year, and then all I was doing is just maintaining. So every result that was there, if a basketball game play, if a football game play, if XYZ, I'd have to just update it. And at the time, you never had content management systems, so you had to
Yeah.
actually be in code, HTML, adding content and managing those pages, managing all the links manually, and so that's where I started out. And then over the years, they started giving me more things to do. And by the end of the time when I was there at college, I actually had redesigned it, built it over from scratch. And that was how I was kind of paying for my non-academic activities while I was at school.
Nice. I think that's an interesting. It's the way how it works, right? You start with one service, you do that really well, you get other opportunities over time. You kind of build this business or this kind of brochure of services that you didn't necessarily start out doing, but it makes sense for the type of customers you want to work with. And we will talk about your clients a little bit later. So how did you go from that you just described to One Great Studio?
Yes, I came back home and I started putting out my resume to different website companies at the time, because there were a couple that were around at the time. And I got a job offer, and when I got the offer and I looked at it, I was like, man, you know, I could I could make this money if I got one site, every 4 months, it would be equivalent pay, right? So
Yeah.
I opted at that point because financially it didn't make sense to just start being a freelance website developer. My parents at the time, they had a business, they were in the music business. And so they had, we started a little store. And so I was managing the store for them, managing their business. It was CD distribution. Them times the CDs, selling it was about streaming, we were exporting CDs, distributing the CDs, and I had a store. So I had my little office in the back where I do websites, and a store in the front where we'd be, selling CDs and other things to people out front, and then we would distribute shipping internationally from there. So my first 2 years of working, that's what I was doing really. And then, I got married, right? Met my wife, got married, and she had just finished her master's. And, we felt when she was done, we had met through Morning. So that's right around the time where, like, when I came back home that first year, that's when I came to faith in Jesus, right? And then
Okay.
after that, I met my wife, and then we got married. She was in school that last year, and then, you know, when she graduated her MBA, finance and banking, there were two paths in front of us. It was like, you go look at bank work, or we had an opportunity to go and serve as managers at Moreland's Camp. I'm not sure if you ever heard of Moreland's Camp.
Yes,
The,
I've been there. My church, we've been there before. Yeah.
okay, cool. So that was the path in front of us. That times now, I had already started to just focus in on the website stuff by that time, because when I met my wife and we were settling down, it was like, all right, the store wasn't working out. I saw that there was potential in the website stuff. So I had started to really focus in on the website side of what I was doing, and just really making that my practice, right? What I would do all the time. So we opted to go to Mandeville, right? Or Spur Tree. It's actually outside of Mandeville. Instead of staying in Kingston and her going and get a corporate job, we knew we wanted to build a family. And I don't know if you know, but they say Mandeville is the place for the newlywed or the nearly deads. That's what they say. That's in Mandeville. It's a place where people just get married. It's a great place to start a family. Cost of living is lower than it is in Kingston, right? And so it's a great place to like kind of establish your family. Pace of life is a little slower, and then it's a great place to retire as well. But you notice that transient community where people move in and move out all the time, right?
Yeah.
And so we went to Mandeville and we spent 8 years at Mandeville. Now, I think this was actually probably a godsend, in all honesty, right? So I don't believe that a lot of things happen by chance, right? And so being out in Mandeville now, my wife was serving at Morelands as the manager. And, I would support her a lot because I can't be, I like to get my hands dirty. I like to do work, right? And so she had a job, but then the way that I am is like, if she has a job and we're there together, like I'm fully in as well. So
Yeah.
the two of us are there, serving at Morelands, and I'm building my business as a solopreneur, and taking jobs and doing that stuff. And so, yeah, that's how we started off. And for the first 8 years of our marriage, we were at Morelands. Now, the key is, this is why I think that time was so important for me too, is that being at Morelands, I grew up in an entrepreneurial family, but it's a music family, not as structured as like my business right now, for example, right? And being at Morelands at the time, I started attending your board meetings, right? And on the board of Morelands, you had a Robert Levy, a Christopher Levy, a Connolly Salmon, who was an executive at Jamaica Brothers at the time. John Bailey was on the board of Morelands. Douglas Lindo was on the board of Morelands, right? And a host of Christian business people, and then also those who weren't business people, who were like Christian ministry people. And being in that setting and seeing the regularity of meetings and reportings and, going to board meetings and going through the financials and all that stuff. Remember, I had a psychology and comp sci background, and then coming now to a point now where you're now starting to see how businesses can function. When I was running my parents' business, I was doing all the QuickBooks, doing everything, but I never really knew like how to read the financial statements and all those things, And so while I was at Morelands, and serving, and just helping, you know, I got the opportunity to do my master's. All right. And from there, so I was still building my business at the time. It was called the Sequoia. I had registered as a sole trader and running that business, running that book separately and stuff, doing everything. So like one person running that business, right? Doing the sales, doing the building, everything, right? And then I went and I got the opportunity to do my master's. I did my MBA, right? And while I was doing my MBA, I started to just see ways how I could apply what I was learning in business school in my web work, right? And it's like this, it kind of woke up a new side of my brain where I realized that I was really, really interested in strategy and like getting into like how businesses work. So going through that program, you do your accounting classes, you do financial reporting classes, and it was a great experience. It exposed me to a lot. It gave me a sound business education to like kind of support the years of practical experience that I was getting like in Morans and being in a more structured environment. And then shortly after that, I actually graduated from a master's in 2012. By then, I had started to build up a good base of clients, right? So I had stable clients, stable income on retainer, and then I actually had started hiring some people on retainer as well, right? So the model at the time was you have retainer clients, you get retainer workers, you manage it, and that's the business at the time, right?
Yeah.
And that's how it was in 2012. And then it was growing to the point where I couldn't manage alone anymore. I found myself not being able to manage it. And I was like, okay. Because remember, I have a growing family at the same time. So during this
Yeah.
time, we're there, the business is growing. We had 4 kids we had 3 kids in 5 years, right?
Okay.
And
Hey,
so
wow. Okay.
a young family having all these kids and it's like, you have the pressures of the home life, pressures of work life. And so I started to recognize that I needed, somebody to put their hands to work in this business as well. Not their hands, just the hands and mind, you know.
Yeah.
And Gino was a friend of ours, and we worked on a project together. Her input on the project elevated my work because she was a designer. She was like a trained designer. She had gone to design school, and just seeing how that kind of opened me up, it was just like, all right, I think I started to really gain an appreciation for how different skill sets match together and how you know it's beneficial when you have different people around. Because I was a real like solo person, and so
Yeah.
recognizing the value that other people add was significant, and that's kind of how One Great Studio got started. When I said, would you like to come and start a business with me, essentially?
Okay.
So
And I
all
guess,
my original, so all those clients that we had built up, right?
yeah.
Actually, came over as the first clients in One Great Studio.
Because
So we
that
never
was,
start. We didn't start from zero. One Great Studio was like an evolution out of the freelance business that I had built up over the first 8 years of my life, essentially.
okay, cool. Because I was gonna ask, what was that transition like? But it makes sense, right? You're working with these clients already. You just say, hey, you're
Yeah.
working
So
with One Great Studio now. I'm
correct.
not.
So 1 month we were the Sequoia. The next month we were One Great Studio, and we started with revenue from day one, essentially.
Okay, cool. And you've been essentially doing that for 10 plus years now at
Yeah.
this point.
Yeah, so that was 2012. And so now we're in 2023. So yeah, so it's been
So
a journey.
at a high level, over the last 10 years, what would you say would have been the different, I guess, phases of that growth, right? Because we know that the prospectus, zeroes in on 2018 to 2022. That would be what I say, is like, dramatic growth, right?
Mhm.
So for the years that we might have missed,
Yeah.
a higher level of what that period was like, and then kind of give us what's been happening for the last 5 years for you as well.
Yeah, no problem. I think when we started off, we were really like really. pushing into the American market, right? A lot of the clients that we had when we first started off were US churches, right? And we had started selling our services. So we were like the in-house agency for multiple US churches, right? And all of them were on retainer. And they were fairly, churches in America, they do a lot of marketing.
Yes.
so
Yes.
so they have activities every week. They have sermons every week, and you create sermon artwork for the podcast, and you do all these different things. So working in that actually gave us good exposure to like connecting different things together, because you had these churches that have a very active communication strategy, and they're communicating multiple times a week, sending emails, they're using their website, they're driving, they're doing things in on the Sunday morning. So you have to support what's happening on the Sunday morning as well. And so we really gained a lot of experience connecting the dots across digital assets at that time, essentially working with a bunch of churches. And what happened was, we there is a church management system called a church community builder, right?
Yes, I've
CCB.
used it. I've used it. I'm a life group lead at my church, so I've used it.
Okay. All right. So I worked with your church then to put
Yeah.
CCB in place at your church, right? And so at that time, what we did is that we built an integration between that church management system and one of our clients' websites that pulled
Ah,
a whole bunch of data from CCB, package it in a prettier way on the website, and allowed people to sign up for the groups, right? So this church that used to take 4 weeks to sign up 600 people for small groups, we did that in one day. They were able to sign up the 600 people for small groups through the integration that we did. And then all that data ended up back into the church community builder. And
yeah.
from there, we got featured in a in like on like the church community builder, like like partner platforms, right?
Yeah.
As like, here's some work that this company has done, and we got leads from there. That's how the church business kind of grew from there, right? And so at that stage, we were actually thinking this was our market, right? Like we were just going to keep exporting services, and then we started working with agencies in the US, right? So we would basically find an agency, work with them, they would outsource their work to us, and then we would just do the work here. So we're just like a back office for them, right? And so that started happening, and it was good. And at the time, and I think no, our desire was to always be a business that exports services, right? And that's how we were going about it. And I think over time, what started to happen is people started to notice us locally, and then our customer base started shifting, because like the US churches were spending, they were spending more than Jamaican small businesses at the time, right? And so it made sense to serve them if they're giving us more revenue, right?
Yeah.
And so we were working with them. And then what started happening is that we started to be noticed locally, and then larger businesses started to give us opportunities locally, right? And so from there, then our business kind of what was heavily export then started to be skewed, because we started getting bigger clients in the island, right? And then
Yeah.
that now made the small business income, look like less attractive. And so we started moving over now to serving larger businesses in Jamaica. And then, we went from like medium business in Jamaica now to where I think right now a lot of our customers are, I'd classify them as not small businesses, but very large businesses in Jamaica.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times churches could be comparable to like mid-sized businesses, depending on even the size of the church itself. There's a lot of, admin. The church does a lot in terms of serving its clients who are the congregation. So there's a lot of moving parts. It's run in a lot of cases like a business, right?
Yeah,
From
it is.
at least
It is.
the
And
management
so,
versus.
so that's how I actually ended up moving back to Kingston, right? So my wife and I were serving at Morelands, as I was telling you, and while we were in Kingston, we were at Swallowfield Chapel before we went down there to Morelands, right? And Pastor David, Uncle David is who I call him. They had a retreat at Morelands, and he looked at me one evening and he said, "Joe, wouldn't you come back to serve as Swallow as a youth director?" Boy, I said, Uncle David, I'm not really, I, I don't think so. Right? I'm very happy because I really like the culture life. Right? It was a nice place. I was really happy out there, and I was like, I don't think. He was just like, pray about it, and I said, boy, you don't know. So he called me back the week, and he said to me, Juve, have you been praying about it? I said, Uncle David, no, I'm not really interested in moving. I don't want to pray about it. And he said, just pray. Jeremy and I said, my wife and I prayed the night. We woke up in the morning and she opened her Bible and it turned to a scripture that says, you've been on this mountaintop too long. Break camp and head to the plains. And at that moment, it was just like, this is crazy,
Yeah,
you know?
it doesn't get plainer than that,
It
really.
don't get plainer than that. So the same day, we called the board at Morons and we said, guys, we want to go back to Kingston. This is where, and we headed off to Kingston. And I spent 2 years there as youth. Now at this time, we still have one great student, right? And I'm a youth director at Field and doing one great studio at the same time. And after a couple of years, because again, you learn different things through different seasons. I believe
Yeah,
that we go through stages and experiences and we learn things, right? So while being there, then I end up learning a lot while I was there about, a larger organization because now Swallowfield Chapel is at, membership, I think, over 1,000 people, right?
mhm,
And you have responsibilities and going through that and learned a lot there as well. And I also learned how, just how precious different people were and different gift sets. Like, you think all the time that, you're going to be most fulfilled when you're around people who are just like you. And sometimes being around people who are very different and having that diversity of opinions and thoughts
yes,
around you is something that really pushes you to grow. And that's something that I found from that season. And then, from there, eventually I felt like it's time to focus on the business.
yeah,
And when I made that move, I think that was around, you know, it was around that 2019 spot where you start to see, things really taking off. This gain, like all that learning coming
yeah.
back into the business and just really just being prepared. And I guess that's a different stage of life where my kids were a little older as well. I'm just ready to throw my all into one great studio, and it's been amazing since then.
Yeah. So at some point, right, and I imagine this because I haven't personally experienced it. At some point, I imagine your business starts to shift, right? So you're doing this for a while. You have clients, you serve them well, you get referrals, things are growing. But whether it be a one client that you get that maybe the average client was spending $10, this client is a $100 client, or maybe it's a new international client. I don't know. But at what point did you feel like the business got to a breakthrough point? Like you started to feel like, well, yes, we have something that's great.
Yeah, I mean the year that we signed Burrito was a big year for us. It was shortly after Burrito got acquired by Connoisseur, right?
Uh,
And the first thing that we did with Burrito was their website project, right? And then from there, that relationship, evolved over time. And we also signed Canopy that year. And Canopy was being launched. So we started working with Canopy pre-launch essentially because Sean Scott was the CEO there at the time, you know, and we met and we had a good vibe and one great city, helped them to launch that brand essentially as well, into the marketplace. And it was interesting. It was just it was a good time. We had a nice team. And that year, I think it really started shifting because we were able to, work with two companies who were very aggressive and in their mindset and had to do, significant things, and we were able to work with them through that period. And that was an amazing time to work with them.
all right. So I want to double click on your relationship with Barita because I mean I'm sure persons have seen that so far you work closely together. You are pretty much the driving force behind their marketing, their website, the Barita
Yeah.
Boss platform, etc. What how has that relationship deepened, and what are the picture that I'm trying to have you paint for our audience is ways in which you may start out with a client and then maybe start offering deeper services and
Yeah.
more services to them. So kind of walk us through, you started with the website. What else have you
Yeah.
done for them in
Yeah.
terms of the breadth of work?
No problem. So we started with a website essentially, right? And the same website up now is the website that we built for them at first, right?
Ah,
And we haven't redone it yet. And that's one of the things about websites as well is that it's not a one-time job.
yeah,
Oftentimes, if you build a site and it's done well, you're going to have cycles where people come back to you and you refresh it over time, and you do rebuilds over time as well, right? And so we started with the website, and when we were done, we started doing digital strategy for them, the email marketing and those things. And we ended up doing a brand book for them as well, right? So it was just like, as you serve people well and they have needs, they come back to you and they say, hey, I have this need, give me your input. And so, we've done their website, we've done their brand book, we do all their paid ads online, right? So anybody to ad that you see that run on social or anywhere, we're running those for them.
those ads on YouTube as well, because I see a burrito ad every time
We,
on
we
YouTube.
run their we run their YouTube ads. We do their outdoor. We do the airport wall. That's one great studio work. So the truth is, like we've done a lot with them, and as you said, we built the Boss platform a few years ago as well. The GPS tool that they have, we built them, and so we're really a partner. And at One Great Studio, our core values are: don't be greedy, think long term, and do good, right? And when you're operating with those things, and those are high esteem values. There are values that are, not paper values for us. And when you operate like that, what we found is that, we gain our clients' trust, and they stick with us for a long run. And so that's what we've seen in a partner like Burrito. And they've really, they're one of the companies that, to be honest, like you look on a Burrito and you say, man, look how the company has been transformed. And I think the truth is that their leadership team was bold, right? And they made a decision that they believe that digital is the future, and they invested in it, right?
Yeah,
And what you're seeing is really the result of that, how they invested in digital. And also they had a very strong outdoor presence as well. They just really had an aggressive mindset,
yeah,
and that boiled down to the leadership. And also, their digital marketing manager, Sean, he's amazing. He's very creative. And then also you will see Barito do things that people will think, oh, I want to be like Barito, but then you have a 5-day approval process. You can't be like Barito.
yeah.
So they were also very agile at the time as well.
Okay. So I want to kind of switch gears a little bit. You've spoken quite a bit about the local side of things. You were an international company before your recent acquisition. So what was it that was attractive about that acquisition? And what was the thought process behind it, right? Because your business would have been growing at that point, and you thought, I guess, that this acquisition could take it over the top. So what was that process like? How did it actually work out? And where does that put you today?
Yeah. So I mean, we started looking at the inorganic growth opportunities in 2021, right? We worked alongside Mark Gale, and him, myself, and Gino, we prepped basically a deck for our board. Like that was one of the things. Yo, I have to just stop and say that as well. Like if you want to grow your business, like get serious about your board and the accountability structures that causes essentially, right? Like we had always set targets and never met them, like before. And but once we put our board in place, and we had to start looking at our numbers every quarter, like it made a world of a difference, because you started to realize if you were on track or not. And then if
Yeah,
you aren't on track, then what are you going to do, right? And so you are forced to actually be accountable when you get that board there. And I think putting our board in place, because that's one of the things I think was super important for us as well. It's not waiting till we're about to list to like gather our board,
yeah, I've
but we
seen
have.
that. I've seen companies do that. Like they start to make these changes, preparing to list, and not
Yeah.
necessarily that it's a natural part of what they were doing.
Yeah, and I mean, when we approach, we've added one board member, which is Jacqueline Sharp. We added her recently, but the rest of our board has been there since we started having board meetings, which was at least 3 years ago, right? And we started meeting quarterly, reporting quarterly, and that was a big deal. So we were watching our growth. We knew what it was. We were measuring it, and we were setting aggressive targets and going after it every year. And every year we had to end the year with, this is what we did, here's what we want to do the next year, how we're going to do it. right? So as we were approaching the end of 2021, we said, guys, this is what we did. And that was good. We knew it was going to close good, right? And we said, this is what we did this year. Here's our target for next year. How are we going to do it, right? And what we came up with is let's explore the inorganic ways. And we went down a path and explored multiple inorganic opportunities. And we decided to pursue the acquisition of an agency, right? Because we could have gone in other business lines as well, like as a tech and marketing agency, like we could have also looked on, SaaS, for example. But we wanted, it's like I had an aha moment. And for everybody who build websites and apps, like your dream is to run a software product, right? Because it's like the top of the world for people who build software, right? Is to just have a software product. Everything would be easy, right? Except when you're in it, right? Right? So, but the truth is that we had experience running an agency and we had developed expertise running an agency. And so instead of pursuing something that we had to learn how to run that business, we know how to run an agency and we've learned so many lessons in that industry. So we decided to stay within that industry and to find a target that had skill sets that we didn't have, right? Because like SEO is a huge field, and there's not a lot of depth in the region in SEO, for example, right? And so we wanted to find a target that had capacity. When we talk about capacity, we're talking about the people who have the knowledge and the skills and the resources to do the work, right? We wanted to have capacity that we didn't have here. So in their case, they had a team of SEO experts. We didn't have that. We have a team of you know marketers and designers and developers, right? And so having a team of SEO experts was going to be complementary to our business, right? And then we also wanted to have a team that had a global reach so that we could also tap into that global market through their sales team, right? So that was the second thing that we looked at. And we wanted the reciprocal thing to be true as well. Somebody who wasn't in our market and who wasn't in our business, so that the integration, we could get wins on both sides essentially,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that was our strategy. We did up basically a matrix, right? And with a like a Rubik's, a grading Rubik's, I would say this is what we want to do. And we started searching for opportunities. And after a couple months of searching for opportunities, we learned about HV and we went through that process. A M&A process is very interesting. You start off with a simple, like a 5-page prospectus, and then you have to go past a screening process because they had a broker, and then after you get through that screening process, you get interviewed by the broker some more, and then eventually they introduce you to the people, and you spend time getting to know each other essentially, right?
Okay. Okay.
After time, they have a thing called a LOI, where if you're talking to them for long enough, it's going to be like, all right, we've been talking to you for long enough. If you're interested, then you have to give us a LOI, which is a letter of intent, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that now is basically an outline of the deal structure, right? So they might have a price that they want, but then you get to structure um, what the deal could look like, and you
Yeah.
offer that to them. And so we offered um, we offered what we thought we could do, and they accepted that. And then you go through a period of due diligence where they open all the books to you, right? And so you have to dive in, you have to examine everything, right? You have to check for all the risks and go through that process. And so, that was months and months and months of work, right?
Yeah.
Which ultimately ended up with us saying yes and completing that deal in September 2022.
So how long did you say it took from start to finish, right? So it completed in September. What was the entire time from the first contact to the closure of the deal?
Yeah, that was March to September for us, which
Okay.
is actually a good time for a deal
Yeah,
like that.
that actually sounds pretty
Yeah.
reasonable. Four to
But it
six
was
months.
it was intense work. It was intense work. Like closing a deal like that is not easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and finding a good target is not easy. And so really we have to put in the work. So when you see a company that completes something like that, that it speaks to some some capabilities, I would say,
Yeah.
and being able to close and fund such a transaction, to purchase a company that was bigger than you, I think speaks to, our ability to understand how other areas of life work, not just, marketing and being able to actually do the business that we're in.
So let's talk about the prospects for high voltage a little bit, because that company essentially would have changed the complexion of One Great Studio, right?
It
Because
has.
you are essentially now becoming it's like you, well, the idea that I have in my head, I'm not gonna say it that way. I'm not sure how it be received, but you're becoming stronger as a company.
Here we
So
are.
what's the path that you see for that business? Because even though it's a part of the company, it essentially was standing on its own. But
Yeah.
what does it look like for
So
you for that business in terms of growth?
so one of the cool things about it is that you can be an integrated business but still having multiple brands, right? And so we have the high voltage brand, and we intend to run that operations, even though, you'd have seen in the prospectus that high voltage digital LLC outsources all the work to One Great Studio LLC. So everybody is really, contracted to One Great Studio. But we're maintaining the brand because in the agency world, your positioning is very important, right?
Yeah.
How a brand speaks to its audience, it attracts customers, right? And so high voltage has a very strong market positioning. So we're keeping their brand positioning, right? And we're leaning into that more. And over time, when we launch in our combined services, we will do that through a similar but different brand, because the truth is that you can have one company that serves different clients through different brands, right?
Yeah.
And the more specific you can be in your marketing when you're talking to people and you position that brand, it really is puts you in a position where, like, let me give you an example. If you have a CRM, right, you can buy a non-specialized CRM for like X, but if you buy a CRM for real estate, you pay X times 10.
Yes.
So focusing on markets and speaking directly to markets allow you to gain greater value from markets, because and so that's something that's very important. So we want to keep high voltage the way that it is, right? Because their positioning works well. And for One Great Studio, what we're looking to do now locally and regionally is really building out, the other services that we can bring in. So now in a market like this, which is a smaller market, then the bigger you are, I think the better it is.
Yeah.
In some other markets, the more specialized you are, the better it is. In a market like Jamaica, I think the bigger we are and the wider our services are, then the better it is for us. So we can offer all those through One Great Studio because we're not positioned locally like a niche agency. You get me?
Okay.
We're
Yeah.
positioned as an agency that offers multiple lines of services, right? And so that's kind of how we see that we will continue to operate HV as an agency that's focused on SEO, and then we will start to sell our services through the HV digital brand, which is also our brand that we have in the US.
Okay. So I have to ask this question. Is there any plans to essentially at some point maybe spin off HV, or maybe list on the New York Stock Exchange, or list overseas? I have to ask, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I
it may
mean,
not be in the short term, but do you see potential in that maybe one day?
Driven, I think for us right now, what we want to do is to complete the integration successfully, right?
Yeah.
At our size, we really have to be intentional about how we place our attention and our focus, right? A company divided, chasing too many things, I think has a less likelihood of success, right? And I think when it comes to executing strategic plans, you have to focus on the plans that you want to execute, right? And so for us right now, our focus with HV is completing the integration, which we have been doing, right? And then finding the cross-selling opportunities, because what we're doing right now is that we're bringing our team into HV, and then we're offering them other things. So once the clients are in, right, we're offering them other things. So you get them in, you have the positioning, you get them in. How business is working on when you get a client, it's easier to widen your pocket share, your wallet share for that client, right? So if you
Volunteering,
have a
right?
very clear message bringing them in, hey, we're SEO experts, and they come in, right? Then when they're in, we can say, all right, guys, now that we've been doing this, you've been taking long to do your website updates, right? So some of our clients need our help to do their website updates, and HV only had one developer. So now we can bring our team of developers and we can do more updates on the sites, right? HV have clients there that search engine optimization is a medium term game, not a short term game. And you might have a new client with a new site, they need immediate traffic, and search isn't going to help them till 3 months down the road. So what does that client need? That client needs some paid ads in the meantime that can generate traffic. If I turn on ads today, it brings you traffic tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
So that same client, instead of going off, no, they're already paying HV money. Instead of going off and then paying another agency money to bring them some traffic via paid ads, they can spend that money with us so we can bring them some paid ads.
Yeah.
And then if we have a client who, when we audit their site, we recognize that there are some technical problems, your page won't rank well because of these technical problems, then we can rebuild the site for them. You get me?
Yeah.
So we use that
Yeah, man.
brand positioning, we get people into the business as clients, and then we can cross-sell them from there, essentially.
Okay. Yeah, I'm seeing it. So you
So
mentioned focus.
that's like the step. So one step
Yeah.
is get clients into the door with your positioning, and then cross-sell to them, right? And then the
Yeah.
next step that we'll move into in our next phase is going to be then offering the services to new clients in those markets that they're strong in, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
rolling out a
Yeah.
related brand in those new, you get what I'm saying? And we do
Yeah.
the same thing in Jamaica and the Caribbean and like even Latin America as well. So that's kind of what we're focused on in the immediate.
Okay. Okay. I get you. So in terms of, so you actually answered my next question in well, you started to in terms of how would you package services to your clients. You've touched on that. Let's speak about the IPO. Specifically you mentioned a use of proceeds. Debt reduction, extremely clear. You'd have gotten the funds from Barita to do the acquisition using the IPO proceeds to clear. That makes sense. You
And
mentioned some.
Jermaine, for those looking on our numbers, I think it's important to just go and take a look at that debt number as well, right? To see what the impact is, because sometimes when you have an IPO for a future, project, like
Yeah.
that return takes much longer to pay off in the
Yeah.
company, because you have to do a lot of things. Like in this case, the deal is already done. And once you clear that debt, you're going to see the impact basically immediately.
Yeah. So you've actually accelerated what most people would buy into an IPO for, because usually you buy
Correct.
into an IPO for the potential to do an acquisition. In this case, you've done the acquisition, and now you're able to clear a chunk of the debt from the acquisition, so you're able to essentially see benefits the next quarter. So as
Correct.
soon as
Correct.
you
And we're,
get from
and we're,
the
and we're
company.
looking forward to that, right? And that's something that's really important to us. And I think the other thing that I want to point out on that point, Jermaine, I don't want to sit on this too long, but I don't know if a lot of people caught this in the prospectus because it's only in the CEO letter, right? Is that
Mhm.
if you look on our cash balance at the end of Q1, right? You will see we have a cash balance, well, cash and cash equivalents, which are short-term investments, of
Yeah.
about $130 million, I believe it is, right? If that's the case, and we have this IPO, we raise money and we pay down our debt, that puts us in a position where we can explore other inorganic opportunities as well.
Yes, and so the CEO letter was actually a great read, I believe, because I actually like the chairman's address as well. Both were very, because you mentioned actually while we're on that, you mentioned just I really liked the number of clients that you had at the end of 2022 and the average spend per client and how that has grown. I think that was interesting to see, because that gives us some idea as to what the potential for revenue is and how much a client is able to
Uh,
spend with you
I
once.
want to give you a little context about that number, right? That number, consider this. The number of clients grew, right, when we incorporated HB's clients, right?
Yeah.
But that value is actually dragged down because HB clients are only included for 3.5 months.
Ah,
You understand what
okay.
I'm saying? So
Interesting.
you have the average spend, but it's considering the year, and HB customers are only there for 3.5 months,
Interesting.
right? And I'm not sure. So when you look on that number, look on it through that lens, because what you'd
Yeah.
expect to see is that number ticking up because you're going to have HB clients for the full year this year.
Yeah. So I was actually going to go there and ask, what does it look like in terms of at what pace do you anticipate that number to continue to grow? Because I see potential for the company to go to maybe double that client base maybe within the year.
Yeah, I mean, so the truth is that we're not necessarily focused on doubling our client base as much as increasing that spend,
You
right?
want to expect.
Immediately, you know, because taking on new clients, there's onboarding cost there as well. So we want to take on new clients. We want to take on higher value clients, right? But doubling your client base basically means you might have to double your team as well. And doubling your team is something that you want to kind of do, slowly as well,
Take
right?
your time to do. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so
I mean,
you kind of step it
increasing
up,
our
right? Yeah,
sense, yeah.
because we doubled our team several years, right? And there's a lot that happens there, but no doubling our team size. What we're finding is that we can grow without doubling our team size as well, right? So when you lean on your systems and your processes, and you start having those things, and we have a concept at One Great Studio called it pushing work down the org chart, right? If somebody is working on something and they have rate X, and you have another person working on it and they're 0.5x, if the person who gets paid 0.5x can do the work, push the work down the org chart, right? And get the work into the point where it's being produced in the most efficient way, so that those who are specialized and senior can focus on the things that they need to focus on, right? And so by doing that as well, you can kind of grow your capacity without a proportionate increase in expenses, essentially, by finding ways to hire more people in, and in positions that require less skill, and then to keep your more skilled people doing the things that only they alone can do, essentially.
Yeah. 1 second here. I just want to pause to, thank everyone for being here. Thank you for, tuning in for this interview. Please take the time to write any questions you have for Djuvane. I'm almost finished with my questions. So, feel free to post yours in the chat now. We will have a sort of rapid question and answer segment where, because we got a ton of questions, we're going to just be asking them and going through them. So I don't want to miss yours if you've been here with us this time. So please take a minute to post those questions in the chat. Okay. So Djuvane, you mentioned a couple of things in the use of proceeds, right? So we touched on, clearing debt and the impact, and it gave us that context into HB and what that means for the business. You mentioned a term that wasn't necessarily clear to me, right? It said, strategic growth initiatives, and it mentioned, new business lines, regional expansion. To me, that's a little vague. It's very broad. Can you give us maybe a little bit more precise explanation as to what the plans are there?
All right, let's start with the business lines, right? So like previously, before high voltage SEO, right? We would have done on-page optimization as like a sub-service on the web.
Okay.
Right? And so if you look on our prospectus, you'll see sub-services under each category, right?
Yes.
Any one of those sub-services has the potential to be a full-blown business line in a global marketplace.
Yeah.
Right?
That's actually what I thought when I saw it as well.
Yeah. So we have our eyes on a few of those that we think would be just as interesting in the Caribbean, right? Based on the same kind of rules that we use it, right? That we're looking at, right? We won't talk specifically about which one, right?
Yeah.
But we think there are opportunities there. right? I hope that answers the question,
Yeah, but
Jeremy.
that helps. That's a big help, right?
Okay.
Because yeah, that helps. That
Yeah.
helps. Okay.
So there are things there that we might be doing a little bit that that has the potential to be a whole department, possibly even a whole business that specializes in that, right? That can add complementary services at a greater scale, essentially.
Okay. Yeah. So the way that I think about it is like you have this service, and as I'm speaking to you, I'm thinking about Learn, Grow, Invest. We have this service that we provide. It's a profitable service. Is a profitable service. Is a part of our catalog. We don't market it,
Yes,
but every
correct.
now and again we get the opportunity to do it, and it would just be a great idea to just like double down on that. Build out the capacity to do it, starting to market it, and then now it becomes just a great impact for our bottom line as a company to now lean into that service.
Yep.
That's kind of how I compare what you're saying. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
that's exactly what we're saying, right? Is that because we do a lot of things already, and there is potential for us to push into, specific ones, and
Yeah.
and so that's kind of how we see that.
Okay, cool.
Mhm.
All right. So I understand what operational and production capacity mean. I think that's very
But let me
straightforward.
break it out. Let me break that out for some folks, because some folks might say you're a digital agency, like you're a service business. What does operational and production capacity mean? You're not producing, any bread or anything like that, right? When we say that, like our operational
Using
capacity,
sense though. Yeah.
yeah, it's the services they have a producer. So the operational capacity is a capacity that keeps the business functioning, right?
Yeah.
And there are different things that's required, and what was required with a team of 20 is a little different with a team of 55, right?
Yeah.
And at 128 million is very different if you're over 500, right?
Mm.
And so we have to prepare for what's ahead operationally. But the cool thing about the operational side is that we believe that when you get to a certain point and you have the different things in place, right? The different key roles, then you can scale your top line without scaling your operational expenses in a proportionate way, right?
Okay.
And so once we get to a certain point, which we think will be soon, right? And if you look on the projections, you start to see that you see the operational expenses starting to to really shine as the projections go along, because we really believe that you can contain the operational expenses as you grow the top line over time, right? And so, and then production capacity now is having the resources, which are the people, because people are our biggest asset, right? Having the people in place to meet the demand when that demand comes, because doing an IPO, for example, makes us very visible in Jamaica,
Yeah.
right? We will probably be the most visible person, like the most visible business in our space by far coming out of this. So going from a company that is completely in the background intentionally, right, to a company that is now very visible, we think that's going to have a significant
More
impact.
more more leads, more calls, more filtering through clients, more proposals to be done. A
Correct.
whole bunch of things that
Correct.
come with it.
Correct.
So you have in your prospectus projections for, and I'll only ask you about the 12 months, right? Because I think projections are excellent. I think they're good to have. I don't necessarily like to go too far in terms of projections though, because there are so many things, like a COVID-19 could happen and that completely derails things. But we are 8 months into your projection for 2023. What would you say in terms of the realism of that projection, being eight
Yeah.
months in to the year?
Yeah. So I can't speak to anything else outside of Q1, right? So
Okay.
let's start with Q1, right? Because that's all
Mhm.
that has been reported so far, right?
Yeah.
In Q1, I think, yeah. So in Q1, our revenue would have been 114.9 million,
Hmm.
right? And our PBT, just make sure I have that number right,
Yeah.
right, would be $28.5 million, right? Now, remember, so you kind of have to, this offer has that nuance where you have to do the math, right?
Yeah.
You can't take 2022 numbers and just look at it alone, because HP is only included for 3.5 months. So you wouldn't be giving yourself an accurate picture of the business by looking on the full year, especially in a year when you have acquisition costs as well,
Yeah.
right? So looking on 2022 doesn't paint the full picture. So you have to take a look at Q4 and Q1, but let's just zone in on Q1. So Q1, you have top line of 114.9, right? And then you have PBT of 28.5, right? Now I'm using PBT because after the list, after
Right.
if we have a
Exactly.
successful
We'll have
raise,
the benefit
then
of,
the
yeah.
taxes get shrunk significantly. We're going to still have a little tax. That's why you see it budgeted in the prospectus in the projections, because we do have the US entity which will post some profit, and so we still have taxation there, but minimal because of the business model, which is all the value being delivered in one way to the company limited, right? And so you look on that, and if you annualize that, it puts you in a place where you see something. And then remember, part of the big part of the use of funds is paying down the debt. And if you look
Yes.
on our debt expenses from Q1, right, you will see that was $9 million alone, the finance costs, right?
Yeah.
So consider you have a PBT of 28.5 and you have finance costs of 9, right?
You're gonna be saving that for at least the 2 months of the year.
Yeah. So if you look on that there, you're going to see significant savings here, right? And so that's what we're looking forward to. We believe that the projections are realistic. And if you look on our historical growth rate, if you annualize like last year, for example, or not last year, if you try and analyze anything that you have since post HV, right?
Yeah.
And apply our historical growth rate, for example, it's going to be way above what we're projecting, right? And so really what we're projecting is what we consider to be conservative growth on top of the full incorporation of HV, right? What makes it look like a steep jump is because last year you only have 3.5 years of HV. So that's why, to give yourself a good picture, you can't just look on 2022. You have to look on Q4 and Q1. And once you dive into Q4 and Q1, you will understand this offer completely.
Okay. All right. So in terms of something that I thought to ask you, you mentioned in another interview, I believe, that you have been building up the discipline of reporting quarterly. Do you have in mind, because you would have, I'm sure, seen your Q2 numbers already. Let's say there you have a successful listing. I believe you'd actually have some leeway in terms of your next report. But are you intending to report maybe Q2 or even Q3 after listing?
I think that's something that we can discuss at a later date.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's something that we have looked on, and I think we can discuss that. I don't want to say anything about it right now, but yeah, we right now our focus is on completing the transaction,
Yeah.
right? Closing off, and once we're at that point, then we will cross the next bridge at that point.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. So I will say that is something that I think would be, because from the investors' perspective, seeing Q1, maybe you list early or late September probably, depending on the closing date, since it's opening on the 28th. Let's say you list at the end of September. It would be there would be a big gap in terms of visibility as to the performance of the business. So that was kind of the thought process
Yeah,
behind my
man. No,
question.
I understand completely, and that's something that we think is very important. And so it is something that we're considering, and you will know when a decision is made on that for sure.
Great. All right, cool. So what I'll do
And
here
Jeremy,
is,
I understand exactly what you're saying, right? I get exactly what you're saying. So
yeah. All right, so I'll ask you just one more question. Well, no, I'll save my questions to the end because I don't want to keep our audience waiting anymore. So Fabi is asking, why should we buy into One Great Studio? We have seen stocks like Dollar create waves and then fall off. Will One Great Studio be one of the same, knowing it's not a household name as yet?
yeah, so I think there's one thing to recognize is that we've been able to grow our business without being a household name, right? The reality is that our customers are not, right now our customers are not small businesses. Our customers are larger businesses, and in the spaces where we earn our money, like we are known, you know, and so people know about us, our clients know about us, and they refer us, right? So when you have a product that is on a supermarket shelf, for example, everybody needs to know about it. When you have a product that is for a specific type of audience, the people who that product is targeted at, it's important that they know about it, right? And so I think that's important to recognize that we've been established in this space and our client list is significant. You know, we have clients like Barito, the Jamaica Brothers Group. At Jamaica Brothers Group, we serve Best Dressed Chicken USA, Wincorp,
Ah,
right? We serve Hypro, right? And that's something that we've been finding as well is that when we just like how when we get into our business, we can serve that business in multiple service lines. When we get into our group of companies, we find
you
ourselves
serve.
serving that group of companies. So we've also done work with Guardsman Group, right? And we've done work across multiple brands there at Guardsman. We do work with
Yeah,
National Supply, Active Traders, Tasty Cheese, that's a group of companies as well. So we did DIGL, which is the parent co. We did Tasty Cheese, and we did This Is Really Great yogurt for them as well. You know, and that's something that we find is that when we get into these larger companies, they typically have multiple businesses as well that you can serve them across the multiple businesses as well. So, so I think that's important for people to understand that a business like us, what's important is that we're in front of the people who are our clients, right? And this after post listing will be very visible, and we intend to continue our marketing. I know you can't miss us right now, we intend to continue that because the impact that it has on the leads, it still keeps the top of mind, right? And when you're top of mind and people are seeing you, they'll pick up the phone and they'll call you or they'll send you an email and say, hey, you know, I want you to do this. And that's something that we're seeing as well. So I don't intend that to slow down, and that's something that we've budgeted for, that we intend to continue being present and being visible.
all right, cool. I'll just say, Fabi, that question about the dollar falling off or then falling off. I think ETL is asking in the chat about that specific comment there. But yeah, I get what you're saying there, Juvane, and I've seen it. Like I've seen because I've been following you for a while. From you did this story about the 10 years, right? And you
Mm,
worked with SOTR and pitch deck. So I've been kind of following the story for a while. I like to do research. So I've been kind of,
mhm.
I didn't know at the time that you were planning to list or anything like that, but it just seemed very interesting that, there's this great company I never heard about. So I've been following you for a little bit. So I see things
Yeah.
ramping up now, and it definitely makes sense for that to continue.
Yeah. And at the end of the
Um,
day, like our focus German is going to be on growing the business, right? And pushing the business forward, right? And as we do that, like we're committed to communicating with our shareholders, right? So we've had discussions, for example, about
yes,
what it looks like afterwards. And that's something that I can tell you is that we're going to be a company that is engaged. And you know what? Mark Gale has been a big advocate for that as well. So even things
yes,
with the offer, like the offer being open this long, for example, not open, sorry, the prospectus being released and having such a large time between when the prospectus is released and when the offer opens, so that
yeah,
people can digest it and jump into the information and dig into it, so that you're not rushing through it, and people have time to actually. So we have been listening. We know how important is it. And if you even look on our show, like our road show, like we've been committed to doing a digital road show. Like we're on Stocks on the Rock. We did Kalila yesterday. We're doing this today. Like we're committed to communicating, and not
yeah,
just till the IPO, but after the IPO as well. Like we think it's very important that shareholders should know what's happening in the company. And I'm telling you, if you're participating, we have onegreatipo.com, right? We're actually starting our shareholders list essentially, right? Should the offer be successful, we will be sending out updates directly to that list as well. And trust me, you've seen our IPO landing page. Wait till you see our investor section on our website as well. We're going to put some work into that and kind of set a standard, because these things will bring us businesses in the future, right?
yeah.
If we have businesses all the time, everybody want to have the best investor section on our website. There's an award there. People love having that. And so, that's something that we will want to build out an investor page that is friendly to the community, that provides information, And we want to make sure that we set a standard in how we market as well. And not market, sorry, how we communicate as well,
Yeah.
post listing with our shareholders, so that they know what's happening and so that they feel like they're a part of what's happening and always knowing what's up with their company. And as I told you before, we've been in the habit of reporting, right? We have a consultant CFO who's been working with our books for a while. We're in a reporting with rhythm, and that's something that you can expect to see from us moving forward, Jeremy.
Great. All right, Elaine is asking, with the global economic downturn and several companies taking cost-saving measures, what is that special sauce that will set you apart from your competitors?
Well, I mean, from the historicals that we have, you can see that we have growing quarter over quarter from the last 2 quarters that are in the prospectus, right? So I start there is that in our experience, our revenue is growing. Also, if you look through during the time of COVID, where many businesses were shrinking, we were also growing through that time as well, right? So I think it's important to recognize that being a digital first agency, people are spending more on digital, right? And spend is moving from digital. I mean, moving from other channels to digital, right? And so even though overall marketing spend might be coming down, that money is being shifted to the industry that we're in, right? And there's a whole detailed section in the prospectus about that shift and what we expect to continue driving that shift, even in the face of an economic downturn, right? So let's start there, is that we believe that we're in a growing industry, and being a part of a growing industry, you get the wings of a growing industry, essentially, right? And from a secret sauce perspective now, and this come back to that brand discussion that we were having earlier, like HB has a very strong brand positioning. It's positioned around scientific search engine optimization and testing, right? Like one of the founders at HB have a patent out on identifying ranking patterns in Google, right? Which are parts of the asset acquisition. We have access to all of that, right? They have a training school, and so there's a whole lot that's baked into the HB positioning, which is the reason why we're maintaining that positioning, because it has a very strong position and it also speaks directly to our audience. So I can tell you that HB, they have processes and systems that are able to generate consistent results for their clients, and they've been doing that for many years, and it's something that we see they keep getting good results, right? So for HB, they have a very clear positioning, and we will keep leaning into that. For One Grade Studio now, our positioning in the region will be, we're an agency, a digital first agency that can provide depth of service, right? And quality of service across all these different things that we do, right? I don't think there's going to be an agency with our depth, and the quality across all the different business lines that we have, that can really compare there. You see a lot of fragmentation locally, where you have a social agency here, or you have a company that focuses on web design here, and you have a company that focuses on app development here, and then you have a very good creative agency, but we're all that in one, right? So we're a full service digital first agency, which I don't believe there are a lot of. I don't think there's another person playing in this space, like at the size that we will be when you incorporate HV SEO now with the chops to run paid and search, and as well as having development and strategy and all those different things. That's our positioning that we will take to the region, because then we can be a single vendor for a company who prefers to have simplicity in their relationships, essentially.
Yeah, because companies typically, I find the larger they get, the more they actually want all of the services or as many services from one provider. They don't like to talk to multiple companies. And they would even sometimes ask you to be the liaison if it is, like, for example, you do web design and somebody is supposed to do it. It's this thing I saw when I was in IT for those years. People actually start to ask you to coordinate with the other people because they are seeing you as one. Correct. So if they have the good relationship with you, they're going to ask you for everything that even relates to online. They're going to assume that you know how to do it and come to you first. And then you have to tell them, no, we don't do that. or you could actually start to build up the capacity to do it.
To do
So
that,
that when
correct.
Steve keep asking, you'll just say, well, yeah,
Yeah.
here you go.
Because it come back to being in a trust industry, Jermaine, because like a lot of people like in service businesses, people are here today and gone tomorrow, right? And you have companies that rise up and they're not here. But the reality is that One Great Studio, like this is 20 years, 20 plus years of building websites, right? We've been in the building, in the business of building websites since 2000. Before One Just, that was me. That's where we started the conversation. And now 10 years worth of experience there. And then having a company that is listed on the Jamaica Junior Stock Exchange, for example, that's the company now that people will know I can trust this vendor because they're more likely to be around than a smaller vendor. Like just this week, I got a lead from somebody who came and it was like, oh, we were working with this person and the person passed away. We have no access. And that's a very sad thing, right?
Yeah.
But it's the reality of dealing with smaller businesses in a space like that, and larger companies they need to be able to trust that their vendor will be there, right?
Yeah.
And our years in the industry, I think, speaks to that, and that's something that it will put us in a better position to win more clients of that size with the visibility and also with the transparency and the accountability of actually being a publicly listed company.
Yeah, the companies that are spending millions of dollars don't want to work with one person. they actually prefer.
They don't want to work with 10. They don't want to work with 20 different people to do the one thing. They want to have simplified relationships to make it very easy for the clients.
All right, so I'm gonna probably accelerate the pace at which I'm asking you questions because we do have a fair chunk to go through. Aline is asking, which company on the JC do you consider to be your closest competitor?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we have a competitor on the JC. I mean, Lab is an agency, but we're a different type of agency. If you look on our service lines, we're very different. Our revenue structure is different. So though it would be like if you have a chicken business and a patty business, it's same food services, but it's very different.
Yeah. Chicken patties. So
Yeah. No, yeah, but all right. So take Jamaica Brothers and Cream, right? Both producing something that people eat, right? Are they competitors?
Yeah.
But it's a similar industry, they're producing something and selling it, and people consume it. So I think I don't know if we have a direct competitor listed currently.
Okay. All right.
We might have some overlap of services.
Yeah. Aline, I think this question was answered and ventilated quite clearly. Hopefully you would have gotten the response after you posted it. So I'm going to skip that one if that's okay. Let me see here. I think it's more of a statement from Tavares saying cybersecurity, I think, is a good way to make bank. Also, maybe a good addition to diversify if you haven't done. So I think he's maybe speaking about maybe the data protection, specifically, and the opportunities you have to work with your clients there.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's actually something that is very interesting in this space. So I agree with you. That's a good point there, Tavares.
Yeah, I see Devon saying something I don't know if I must ask. It is asking if you're gonna acquire LGI.
Content is king. That's what they say, right, Jeremy?
Yep. I'll just. Yeah, go ahead.
No, man, that's cool.
Okay, I see my wife, responding to it. It is definitely a question. No, Devon, it's not in the works. We have not had any such conversation. So no. Let me. Okay, so I do have some other questions here. As you are in our Telegram group, there's a gentleman who posted. Sean, I'm gonna acknowledge you. Sean asked a couple of questions. Sean, I'm gonna pick through some of them because we are trying to wrap this up in about 10 minutes. So I want to ask what I think is probably your most urgent questions. And then I'll ask you, Djuvane, to just give us, the thorough but concise answer, if possible. So his first question here says, how many long-term contracts do you have? meaning clients you've been working with over 10 years. I think that's interesting because the company is 10 years old, so over 10 years. Maybe a stretch. It says how many medium-term contracts do you have and how many short-term contracts do you have. So I think he wants to know here the length of the contracts, maybe how long you've been working with the average client, and some context around that.
Yeah, I mean, what I can say is that, again, come back down to our history. If you look on some of the clients that we've worked with, you will see us having a long-standing partnership with them. Like the exact number of years and different things like that, I don't think it's something that we'll get into right now. But what I can say is that we're actively working on increasing that, right? And a big part of our business is keeping customers and then also growing the amount that each customer is spending with us, right? So that's something that that we have looked on, and it's something that we are tracking. But it's also something that, as you incorporate HVSEO as well, is a little different as well, because we've only had that business around for 6 months at the time of the prospectus, so you have to consider that as well, essentially.
Okay. He's asking, how is payment processed? Is it on credit terms, or do customers pay in advance before you start the work?
Yeah, I mean, so we have, I think it would be disclosed in the prospectus that about 60% of our customers are on a retainer, right? And so that's monthly income that comes into the company. And for project work, typically project work is broken up into milestone payments, and we try to make sure that those things line up as close as best to how the work is actually produced. And so there's a combination of income. There's project income and there's retainer income, right? But I think we've managed to find a good balance of that. But if you look on our receivables, for example, I think it's relatively low in comparison to our income. So we actually collect cash, and if you look on our cash flow, you will see that our cash balances have been growing. I mean, if you look at our balance sheet, you see our cash balances have been growing, and if you look on our cash flow, you'll see that we're also cash flow positive every year that we have reported here in the prospectus. So I think we do a good job generating cash, bringing cash into the business. And the good thing about our website, is that because we maintain most of the websites that we run, is that if the payments disappear, the website can also disappear. So the truth is that being in the business that we are in, we've learned enough lessons in terms of how to ensure that we get paid, and we optimize our agreements to ensure that we get paid and don't get left cold in the bag.
That's such an interesting comment. I won't even tell you how funny that was to me. So next question is I think this is a great question, by the way. What obstacles do you see yourself facing in achieving that goal of $1 billion in revenue in 5 years?
I think for us, Jeremy, we have to take it 1 year at a time, right? And when you think of $1 billion in revenue, like, it feels like, oh man, that's a lot, right? But if you look on our trajectory, we've been growing at over 80%, with a compound annual growth rate of over 80% a year, right? The growth rate in using a projection is much lower than that, right?
Yes.
And so for me, when I look on that, I think all we have to do is focus on what's in front of us right now, be diligent with each growth strategy, and execute on it, right? Once you have that incorporated, then you move on to the next one. And right now, our focus is on finishing up this integration, moving into the cross-selling, and then expanding into those different markets that we're talking about, right? And as we execute on that, we know the growth will come. And then we take our next set of strategies from there. But we have a plan, and it's something that we're going to be very strategic about. But it's also, you have to recognize that we're going to be a focused company. We're going to focus on what we're doing, and we're going to go after it with everything that we have.
Yeah. So there was a part of your corporate structure. There was a Snappy, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, Limited. And you did mention in the prospectus that it's not currently active, or it was developed for a product that you're not actively marketing, I believe it said. Can you give us anything at all about it, or is it something that you're not able to address right now?
Yeah, it's something that we're not able to address right now. It's something that we're not planning to market right now. like what we found is great success in the agency business, right? And we're putting all our attention on that, right? And so we don't want to be scattered in our focus, right? And though we have a product that we are working on, we have to disclose it because it's a part of the group, right? But our focus right now is on executing on the strategies that we've laid out and growing the agency, right? And we think that at the end of the day will pay great rewards for our future shareholders once this offer is closed.
Okay. Okay. All right. And the final question that I'll ask from Sean's list, Sean, I hope I got the most critical ones for you. How successful are you in your tactics in raising awareness for a client's brand? So for instance, what is their average percentage increase in brand awareness?
Yeah, I think different clients have different increases, right? There's a certain natural interest in every product, right? I think if you want to know how successful are we in increasing our clients' brand awareness, I think take a look at Barita.
Yeah.
Everybody knows where they are, right? And it's a matter of also client budget and all those different things. So for us, at the end of the day, we are a capable company. I'm sure you'll be seeing us as well. We focus on efficient strategies, right? We have retargeting campaigns running. We have series running. So I'm sure if you've been to the website, you've seen a series of ads and different things happening like that. We've been doing this for a really long time, and we are, committed to staying on and up to date with what's happening. And that's one of the things about our team is that we love to learn. And we're always measuring everything as well. For our IPO campaign right now, I have a dashboard, a real-time dashboard that shows me our results. Like measuring results is something that we're really serious about. And so for all our clients, we know what they're after and we're measuring the results for them.
Okay. All right. Tavares giving some context as to cyber security mentioned earlier, saying the SEO industry is an estimated US 75 billion and cyber security is US 160 billion. So it would definitely look good to complement your current services. So it's just giving that context.
My brother-in-law is a security expert,
Okay.
Yeah, so I like the industry. I like the industry.
Yeah. Question here: how ready are you for the potential impact of AI on search and its implications for SEO?
Yeah, I mean that's something that we've been well aware of on the HV side, and I think the important thing to recognize is that during I started building websites in the year 1998. I tell you, I got my first paid website in the year 2000. Best believe the tools I use to build my website in 2000 is very different from the tools that we use right now in 2023.
We were using
right?
Dreamweaver at the time, right? 1998.
Exactly. I was using Dreamweaver. I was using Photoshop. Export the JPEG, bring that into Dreamweaver, cut it up, right?
Yeah.
And
that
that's what it was. Yeah, man.
Brings back painful memory.
And then I built my first CMS site on a CMS platform that was called B2, which then got forked and became WordPress, right? And so the reality is that the way that we see One Great Studio is that we use strategy, design, and tech to drive business outcomes, right? And the strategy, the design, and the tech, those are our tools. What people come to us for is the outcomes, right? And the tools will change over time. So that's why we see AI. We see it as a tool. But Jeremy, I expanded on this in the LGI group. I think earlier, and I was sharing about the AI stuff. Is that the reality is, as a business, like when you are a business with nothing to lose, you function from like different from when you're a business with something to lose, right? And I had said this about crypto, is that if we pivoted our business completely to crypto at the time when that was blowing up, like we'd be running for the hills right now. And what's happened is that regulation has caught up and the industry has changed, and then that changes the picture. And with AI as well, we have to be careful. Though we love it, though we use it, we have to be careful because the tools might look different 2 years from now when the regulation catch up. And there definitely is regulation that will come because there are copyright concerns, there's actually like, there are a lot of different concerns around it. And we have to be sober minded in how we lead this business and make sure that we incorporate technology, use technology, but you can't chase every fad that's out there. I'm not calling AI a fad, but I also think it might be very different 2 years from now than it is right now. And so we have to be sober in terms of how we apply some of these things.
Yeah, I definitely don't see it as a fad either. I think it's more of a thing where something can become so much of a buzz that I think it has to get more practical. So that buzz will kind of quiet down to a certain level, and then there will be real implementation. Just the same that I saw for cryptocurrency, a lot of kind of fluff out there, but there are companies using blockchain in a meaningful way that they've been using it for years and so on. So I think it's the same for AI, where we've already been seeing some kind of slow and meaningful integrations, right? Even a lot of people don't know a lot of the chat bots they're interacting with on websites. That's AI, right? They send
which we've been building out some of those, right? Yeah.
So I mean, it's going to be a part of it. Do you have to pivot your whole business? Probably not.
Yeah, and I think the key there is to recognize that we will use technology to serve our clients as technology evolves, right? And also we will use technology to drive efficiencies in our business as well, right?
Yeah.
And so I think those two things there. So we don't see AI as a threat necessarily.
Yeah. I don't think we're comparing the two. We're just giving an example in terms of, I think what Djuvane was saying, if they rushed to change their business model due to the surge in interest in crypto and digital currency, their business would be in a different position than it is now. So he's likening that to this push around AI and chat GPT and everything surrounding AI now. He's not necessarily in a rush because the technology is a tool for them to get to their customers.
And you use it while it's available. But I'm also confident that it's going to be different in 2 years. Like regulation will come. Like we already have countries shutting it down. You have different things happening. You have a lot of things in court cases right now. So you have to you use technology while it's here in this iteration. But we're also confident that the next year's iteration is going to be very different. So you incorporate it as much as you can, use it to serve your clients, and you go from there,
Yeah, agreed. All right, so I just have 2 more questions for you. Thank you so much for, I think we're kind of getting close to this being one of our longest interviews. I appreciate the time greatly. What countries would you like to target next in terms of, you're in a lot of countries already, right? Combining the 2 entities, but which countries would you like to target next? Any new ground or new territory do you see for the company?
I'd say, Jermaine, I'll give you 2, right? But I won't give you 2 countries, right? But I'm going to give you some regions. The European market is very interesting to us. We have a nice presence there. We have a good chunk of team there, right? And it's somewhere that we feel like our team have diversity of language. So we have, a lot of different languages being spoken there. And there are a lot of people who need multilingual SEO, for example, right? And so that's something that we're looking into, having that depth of experience across multiple languages, right? We think that's something that we can kind of push into, right? So that's one area. So Europe is one. And I think the other area that we're looking into, pushing into more, is the Caribbean. Like, we have clients in Cayman, we have clients in Barbados, we have clients in Belize right now, right? And so what we want to do as well is to push more into the Caribbean. We feel like we just hired our first person in Trinidad, and we want to push more into the Caribbean because the similar sized businesses that we serve in Jamaica, they exist in some of these other islands as well. And some of the smaller islands don't have an agency of our size, right? And so we can serve some of them as well. So I would say Europe and the Caribbean are 2 regions that we're looking into.
Great. And I like to ask all the CEOs I interview this question: what are you reading now or listening to now in terms of books or podcasts and etc.? Anything that you'd like to leave with us in terms of what's a good listen or a good read?
Yeah, I mean, a book that I think is a good read is a book called Making Ideas Happen, right? By Scott Belsky. He was the founder of Behance, which I think got acquired by Adobe, right? And that's a book
Yes.
about the discipline of it's discipline in the creative mind. So, as a person who generates a lot of ideas, generating ideas is great, but executing them and bringing them to fruition is better, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes people who generate a lot of ideas, they struggle with executing on them, right? Because by the time you put your foot into one and you start working on it, there's another thing, so you leave that and you're gone. And that book for me, I probably first read it 10 years ago, but it transformed the way I operate from being somebody who would not focus and execute to somebody who picks something that is strategic, decides on it, and complete it. So, for example, 2021, we decided we want to list on the Junior Stock Exchange. Focus on that. How we going to,
Yeah.
what part of that? We want to acquire a company and we focus on that. And we get it done. And then we turn our attention, we want to list, and then we get that done. And we're turning our attention now to doing the integration plan as we have been doing and rolling into the growth strategies that we've been talking about. I think that is an incredible thing to recognize that if you're disciplined and you focus and you become very pragmatic and systematic about how you approach breaking down your ideas into multiple steps that are actionable steps. Because you see, when you have a big idea, sometimes it can overwhelm you. But what you have to do is that you have to take that idea and you have to break it into chunks and break those chunks into steps. And when you have those steps, then you take one step at a time. And learning that's the summary of what I learned from that book is how to take my ideas, how to break them down, and how to execute on them. And that's the book called Making Ideas Happen. That's a book that I would recommend, Jeremy.
Great. Thank you for that. So I'll ask you for your final call to action for potential investors. I'm going to put you full screen for you to have the opportunity to, say any final words to persons who are, listening to this interview. Maybe they watch the prospectus review as well, and maybe they're on the fence about the company. So your call to action to investors.
Yeah.
I'll hand over to you.
Yeah. I mean, I think we have a great offer here, Jermaine. I think at One Great Studio, our values are big to us. Don't be greedy, think long term, do good. Our people are very important to us. We like to say we're a place where people want to work. That's a big deal for us. We really appreciate our people. Um, as far as the offer is concerned, I think it's important for everybody to realize that our revenue is diverse, right? It's diverse across service lines, across geographic lines, and also across currency. We are diversified in our revenue, right? We also have a strong history of growth. Our growth didn't start with HVSEO. Yes, HVSEO is transformative, right? It changes the scale of our business, but we have a historical record of growing. And not only just growing top line or profitability, but also growing cash flow and producing real cash, right? And if you look on our numbers, you will see that as you look through our numbers, because you should go and look on our prospectus, process it, digest it, right? Understand the business. And as you look on those numbers, just zone in on your Q4 and your Q1, right? We think this is an amazing opportunity. We have strong growth plans ahead. We have a strong cash balance. We will have, after we pay down the debt, that's going to pay immediate returns to our shareholders. And then we will have cash in hand to grow the business. And we're really excited about executing on that. And as you've heard, we're very focused on executing our growth strategies. Hopefully, those growth strategies are a little bit clearer to you tonight. And I think they should be. And so, we invite you to participate and come along this journey. I think one of the things that we've also spoken about is that we have paid dividends for the last 2 years. Our dividend policy is at 30% max dividend policy at the moment. And I said it, and I keep saying it. Gina and I have enjoyed dividends. We will both hold about 50% of the company should this offer be successful. And that's something that we're looking to continue in the future. So we're just excited to, welcome our future shareholders, should this offer be successful, which we anticipate that it will, then we are looking forward to great things ahead and having you on board as a shareholder at OneGS.
All right, great. Thank you so much for that, Djuvane. Thank you for your willingness to kind of explain and give detail and context around all the questions we've asked. I feel comfortable in saying that you have addressed all the concerns and the questions straight ahead. So definitely appreciate that. I look forward to how things will play out. We do have one more session together. I'll be meeting with Gina and the Barita team for a Q&A. I don't know how many questions we'll have left after this one, but I'm sure we'll have the opportunity to hear just more about the partnership between you and Gina. That's something that I'm interested in, and then hearing how Barita has been kind of working with you, and I guess the vision that they see alongside, continuing to work alongside you to grow the business, right?
So Jeremy, I can say, Barita has been an amazing partner, and also Miles, Petra, and Gordon, they've been amazing partners as well. Our attorney on the transaction was just, absolutely amazing. Djuvane Browne, I have to big her up, Jeremy, because she has just been an advocate for One Great Studio. She had a baby in the middle of her other transaction, and she was there right through it. I mean, when I mean workforce, like Chanel has worked for us, and Miles, they have really, really worked for us. So we've been blessed to have two amazing partners in Barita and Miles, Petra, and Gordon, who really believed in us and really, worked with us through the process, and we don't take that for granted at all.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much. All right, Djuvane, we'll definitely speak again soon.
All right, Jeremy, take care. Blessings.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much. I hope that you found great value in the conversation. There were some questions that we didn't get to, unfortunately, based on the time. I think, and I'm saying this to Sean. Sean, I hope you're good. I will say though that I think what we may do with this video, if it makes sense, is probably split, because the Q&A segment I think would be very IPO specific, and maybe questions surrounding the prospectus. I'm just thinking about the person saying it's an hour and 40 minutes. How are they gonna sit through this? But we'll see, right? Let me know in the community what you think about that. So my final call to action for everybody watching: please take a moment to like the video. Just in case you do have any questions for the One Great Studio team, post them in the comments. We do have one more episode with them that will air a week from today. And please do take the time to read the prospectus before you make any investment decision. Read through the offer. We do have a video that's coming up that should help you understand how to read a prospectus. That's something that we noticed was missing in terms of content that we haven't done yet. So we'll help to sort of serve as a guide for you in terms of reading through an offer. But we did do a prospectus review that kind of gave you an idea as to what areas that we think make sense to focus on. So I really hope that that helped in terms of making your decisions. So thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in the very next video.
Learning is the key to successful investing. And who doesn't want to invest in some way?
Here at L.E.A.R.N Grow Invest, we focus on financial education, all with the aim of sharing our knowledge on personal finance, investing, and building wealth. We do this on the foundation of our faith in God.
If a more holistic approach is what you need, check out our Grow Faith-based financial coaching program.
Find out more about us at learngrowinvestclub.com
and follow us on all social media platforms